New Testament reading comes from 1 Peter, 1st chapter, verse 10. Like good stewards of the manifold grace of God, serve one another with whatever gift each of you has received. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
To be honest with you, sermons on stewardship can be boring and uninspiring. They can be flat as softballs that one rides, as stale, as comfortless as last night's leftover sparkling juice or beer. Or worse yet, they can be theologically disturbing and poisonous. Like those Christians in ancient England who sung the following little rhymes to the tunes of doxology. God save us from this raiding priest who sees our crops and steal our beast, who pray give us our daily bread and take it from our mouths instead. Today I would like to begin my sermons on stewardship with three things I would like to avoid. The first is the often implied assumption that to meet the financial demand of the church is automatically to do the will of God. Honestly, if God were a CEO sitting on the throne of heaven who evaluates every single churches in the whole wide world, I am quite sure God must wish some churches dead. So inefficient, dysfunctional, and so blatant is their unfaithfulness to the gospel calling. St. Augustine once said this: there are as many sheep without the fold as there are wolves within. And therefore, we need to strive to do the best, not just to meet our financial goals of the church, but to act and live and engage in the missions of all kinds as a God's church authentically must do. The second thing I would like to avoid concerns tithing. Tithing is, as you know, give 10% of your income to God. And I would like to defend and commend it as a holy spiritual discipline. And it is to acknowledge with our faith that everything we have is from God. So, but in no way do I want to present tithings as some kind of payment, tribute to God. Pay it, and you are squared away with God. In a recent religious study that is done in America, about 2.5% of American Christians tithe currently. 2.5%. But if all Christians in America tithe, then there would be $165 billion for churches to use it, distribute it, and for kingdom ministry in the whole wide world. And out of this unimaginable amount of giving, $25 billion could relieve global hunger and starvation and death from preventative disease in 5 years. Just imagine that. $12 billion could eliminate illiteracy in 5 years. $15 billion could solve the world's water and sanitation issues, especially at a place, the world population, where more than 1 billion people live, on a less than $1 American per day. And $1 billion could finally fund all overseas mission projects. And we would still have about $100 to $110 billion left over for additional people's life transforming ministries for all Americans and around the world. I am very thankful and I am proud to share with you that Presbyterian Church in Norwood, we pledged more than 10% of our totality of our church income for the mission project last year. So we are tithing church. And you don't know what this means. Out of 45 churches in our presbytery, this is something that we can be thankful, that tithing church. My only humble hope is that I think I will dance all night when we can tithe 30% of our church income. Why not 50%? This is something that we can dream of. And finally, among the things that I don't want to do this morning is to talk indirectly about what we are talking about, money. Money can be the hardest things to redeem. But whether or not we did determines whether or not we are practical atheists. The Lord is only served by generosity. Let's listen to these words from the Deuteronomy. It says, when you come into the land which the Lord your God gives you for an inheritance, and have taken possessions of it and live in it, you shall take some of the first of all the fruits of the ground, which you harvest from your land, and that the Lord your God gives you. And you shall go to the place which the Lord your God will choose. Deuteronomy 26. The ancient Israelites gave the first fruit of their harvest, not as a Greek, but unavoidable duties. Rather, they did it out of sheer gratitude and for simple reason. Why shouldn't God share in the harvest that God himself made possible? The earth is the Lord and the fullness therein. That understanding lives from every other page of Old Testament. The Israelites might take possessions of the promised land, but they knew deep down they could never claim ultimate title of it. Actually, the Israelites were not only more aware than we are of the ultimate source of their bounty, they were also more sensitive to the question of how much everyone should share in the fruits of the labor who took part in the labor. So not only God, but they also invite animals too. They invited to share in what both make possible. So also were the widows, orphans, and the strangers. But they were invited not as a matter of charity, but they came simply because God's gifts are for all, not just for some. In giving to the needy, the Israelites were, in a sense, only giving what was theirs already. No noblesse obliges here, only responsible stewardship. As I said before, to each according to his or her need is a biblical form of justice, far more basic than to each according to his or her work. And finally, let's recall and remember that all this giving on the part of the Israelites took the form of a great festival with lots of food and strong wine. From the beginning to the end, it was truly a joyous affair. But we have forgotten this great heritage in our faith tradition. And forgetting God, most of us Americans consider ourselves the ultimate property owners. We, the government, sometimes has sort of mafia to be paid off in taxes for their protection. To give or not is therefore a question for us alone to decide. My ego, my region, I, myself, and as our charitable instinct also dictates, but not as the justice of God demands. Worse, we have made our possessions an object of our faith. We are what we own. We are what we consume. And we think we are more and better when we reach a higher standard, having more and consuming more. In short, we have given our hearts to the status and the security our possessions afford, and therein lies the danger of wealth to salvation. Didn't Jesus make crystal clear that you and I cannot worship both God and mammons at the same time? Let's see if we can be as clear as possible about what Jesus did and say regarding money. He did not ask us to renounce all possessions. Let's make clear. But only the spirit of selfish possessiveness. He is for poverty, not destitution. Jesus asked us to give up extravagant luxuries, not necessities. He himself was a carpenter. He was not a beggar. He didn't separate the haves from the have-nots so much as he separated the have too much from the have enough. Jesus wants us not to detach ourselves from worldly goods, but to use them lovingly, graciously. So we have three good reasons to give generously and joyfully to God. The first, we give to God because God gave us all things. Your health, your ability, the connections that you never expected to have, your family, friends, the willing hearts, people around you, all these are from God. All things come of thee, O Lord, and of thine own have we given thee. 1 Chronicles 29. The second point is that we give to the needy because God's gifts are for all people, not just for some. We only give to the needy what is theirs already. And thirdly, what is to their benefit is also to ours. For in giving, we free ourselves from bondage to our obsessiveness to our possessions. There seems a mood of disaffiliation in our society generally. The middle-class Americans is in some kind of a revolt, seeking security rather than the public goods. Individuals and families seem to bend on becoming sanctuaries from society, not tributaries to it. And while many millennial Christians, young Christians, are forming in their private lives much that is true and good and beautiful and human, they are refusing to cope with what is untrue, not good, unlovely, and inhuman in our collective lives in America. This is simply being irresponsible. We are rapidly making our modern day lepers out of the poor people and out of the neediest people among us. So there is no doubt that our first fruit of our time, our gift, our treasures are desperately needed for God's ministry. As I said before, I myself find practical values in tithing as a discipline of a faith practice. And I have learned throughout the entire of my life, by tithing, I never become poor. God surprises me, always, in a very surprising way. So I would like to commend it to you. Seriously think about it. Pray about it. And like the poor widow whom Christ Jesus called the attention of his disciples, this widow provided that the really loving gift is not something extracted from a person, however large it is, but something which is given in the flow of the heart, no matter how small it may be. The widow gave more than she could spare, even though she gave 2 pennies. She gave until she felt pinched. Perhaps she gave until she felt the hurt, because that's all what she got. But no, she gave until it felt good. She gave until it felt good. How much should we give? The only safe rule is to give more than we can spare. For only then, perhaps only then, do we finally give ourselves. Maybe poet James Lowell was right when he said, not what we give, but what we share. The gift without the giver is bare.